I like to think about what would my 90-year-old self tell me is the most important thing I need to be focused on. And what would my 6-year-old self tell me, like
Mhm.
before the corset came on? And
Right.
those two points of view, I feel like can help guide us into realigning and resetting while we take off that corset and put on the crown.
So honored to have Carrie Lupoli on the podcast today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored, excited, and ready for this conversation.
Yes, me too. We're just chatting here. There's so much that's going to come out. And one thing I want to start with is that you talk about the invisible corset. Can you talk about what that is and why it's so prevalent amongst women?
Oh my gosh, it's so like once you see this metaphor, I feel like you can't unsee it because it has been this is a thing that I say all the time. Like my kids, my girls started talking about calories when they were 5 and 6 years old. And I swear to you, I had never taught them about calories, but was I obsessed about calories? Absolutely. And you can't teach what you don't believe and you teach what you believe. So it was like a big wake up moment. And I'm like, where did this come from? And then I started doing a deep dive into my own belief systems and what I remember about growing up. And I remember, I mean, I have very curly hair, and I only when I turned 40 did I embrace it. I straightened my hair all the time, like just because that was what I believed I was supposed to do. And I remember my mom was brushing my hair. I was like 6 years old, and she said, and it was hurting. And I was like, ow, mom. And she goes, beauty hurts, honey. Beauty hurts. And I realized we were all of us were given and kind of forced to wear this metaphorical corset, not a physical one, but the psychological one made of food rules and cultural conditioning. It's where diet culture, it's where the belief that in order to be valuable, you have to look a certain way, you have to be a certain size. I mean, let's be honest. If someone says to you, oh, you look great, it's code for you look smaller. We have all fell into this norm, and it really is this corset. And then by the time you get to be, I'm going to say 40, 50, you're going through perimenopause, you're like, I can't breathe anymore. I can't keep up with this. I can't do everything. And I have to keep squeezing this corset tighter and tighter. I have to shrink to be more. And I was giving a TEDx actually last year. And as I was preparing for the TEDx, because I teach about diet culture, I teach about the cultural conditioning, it hit me. We are all wearing this corset. And as soon as I started testing that with other women, they're like, yes. And even other men. I actually had a man say to me, I got the corset put on me when my mom used to take me to the husky side of Sears when I was buying jeans and I was a husky. And it was like it established his identity in so many ways. And so I think the corset sits on us within our own decisions about food in our bodies. I think it sits on us when it comes to our careers and it comes to our success, it comes to finances, and it's like this invisible message that we have been taught that we have to act and be a certain way in order to be the woman of value. And now we have this like you have to be superwoman, do everything, which is just honestly another corset.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that term you came up with because it so explains that. And I can very much relate. I remember going in a drawer when I was going through some of my childhood stuff. I found a note I wrote myself when I was 8 saying, I'm so fat. And I'm like, I did not remember that. And I remember like at that time, I was like, oh my gosh, that poor girl that, wrote that child, like writing that, thinking that she was so heavy at
Yep.
8 years old.
So
So
you got the course. I always say it's somewhere around 8 is where my theory
yeah,
is that we get the corset put on us.
right.
And I actually, when I was on the Today Show about this very topic, and Jenna Bush Hager was interviewing me, and she told me the same exact story that you just told me. She said, in her journal, she wrote when she was 8 years old, I have to lose 6 pounds. And she said, my mother never, ever, ever talked about weight because she knew she didn't want to put that on us. And I said, but here's the thing. The loudest voice wins. And when society actually expects you to put on that corset, you put it on. And unless there are women in our lives that even see the corset that can help us to not put it on or to take it off or to even know it's there, then it's going to be put on us. And that's what I had said to her. I'm like, there's no shame on your mom at all. But she had the corset on too. And she just thought
Right.
silence is the answer. And it's the opposite.
Yeah, you're so right. And it's like looking back, I can definitely see patterns in my own life of things that I took in, and you soak in everything as a child, and then
Yeah.
you continue on with those things until someone wakes up to the reality of it. And I would love to, for if you can go a little bit deeper into that of these generational patterns. I know
Yep.
I watched one of your YouTube videos and you were interviewing your daughter, and I thought it was such a special moment where you're talking to her, and it's just such a vulnerable conversation. And it really like it opened me up to like, wow, these conversations are what need to be had between
Mhm.
a parent and a child. And can you talk about these generational beliefs that we
Yep.
keep putting on that we unconsciously may not even realize we're putting onto our children until we finally wake up to it?
Yeah, we definitely don't realize it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember squeezing the fat in the back of my legs while looking in the mirror, just imagining what my legs would look like if they were smaller,
Right.
if they didn't touch. And I just
Mhm.
thought, then I'll be happy. Then I'll have confidence. And there's no way that that belief system doesn't seep into the offspring, right? And how did I get that? My mother. Like she never ate Diet Coke at dinner, and her belief that beauty hurts, that you have to restrict and deprive yourself. My mother to this day will never leave her bedroom without makeup on.
Mhm.
And while she has come a really long way, and in my book is called From Corset to Crown, and I'll explain the crown in a minute, but she drew flowers in every chapter. And at the end of the book, you get a bouquet of all of these flowers. And it was just such a moment of my mom and I working on this book together in a lot of ways, because a lot of things came up that she didn't realize was happening. And she got it from her mother. And it just went, and I always say, like, everybody says they want to give their children a better life than they had. And we always think about it in terms of money. Like, I didn't get to go to Disney World. My kids get to go to Disney World. And I will say, now that I have college girls, those that have given their kids all the things when it comes to finances, raise kids that are not as gritty. They are not as hardworking. They don't have quite as much of the oomph that we really want in young kids today. I don't think that giving your kids things is a better life. I think it's empowering them with this concept to become a truly independent adult is what we need to be doing. And so I love to say that I changed my family tree. It will be a process that will always happen. I'm still working on it. My girls are still working on it. But when I decided I was actually going to have to make a shift, because it was 5 and 6 years old, family Friday pizza night, and I didn't eat the pizza. I got salad with dressing on the side, but I was ordering from the pizza place, so it was like totally fine.
Mhm.
And then my 5 year old said to my 6 year old, "Why does mommy never eat the pizza?" And my 6 year old said to her daughter, "Because it has too many calories." But she wasn't judging. She wasn't upset. It just was. And I think that's what
Yeah.
happens. We just think it's all normal. And then
Right.
I got on this deep dive talking to everybody I knew, and they all believed it was normal. When I was a senior in college, I had just come out of I was a Division I college cheerleader. And I mean, cheerleading is just a whole nother realm of like disordered thinking about your body. And my college job ordered pizza. I have this recurring theme of pizza in my life, and I couldn't eat the pizza. And I remember I like physically couldn't eat it. And it was the start of my eating disorder. And I just knew if I ate the pizza, I'd be fat. If I was fat, I had no value. And I called my mom. And my mom's like, "Yeah, you can't eat the pizza."
Mhm.
I, and again, it was just, it was. There was no judgment behind it. And
Mhm.
so, right when my kids started talking about that, I'm like, I have to do something. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I needed to be on this journey. So I went on the journey. I made lots and lots of mistakes, but I named it in front of them. And I realized it's like, again, you once you see it, you can't unsee it. Instead of like saying, like when somebody offered me dessert, "Oh, I shouldn't." Oh,
Mhm.
all right. I'm being bad. Like these little tiny things. And I was a behavior specialist for 30,
Mhm.
I've been a behavior specialist for 30 years. So I'm really nuanced on language because it matters. And so I just started getting really deep in the things that we unconsciously say, because our reactions often are subconscious. We don't even know we're doing it. And then it's really hard to change it. So I got real conscious of
Mhm.
all the pieces. But instead of not saying things, I literally out loud told them what I wanted to say
Yeah.
and how I was trying to retract. So I didn't really realize anything was working, to be very honest with you. My oldest didn't have a friend at her 14th birthday party. She had a really sweet voice, but never, ever would sing in front of people. And I didn't know if what I was doing was really working until one day when she was 16, we got an Amazon delivery box. And I was shocked by what I saw because it was a tiara. And I was like, who ordered a tiara? It was during COVID. And Grace comes running down at 16. She goes, I did. I ordered a tiara. And I was like, why'd you order a tiara? And she said, because I always wanted to be a princess and now I can be. And I know my value and this will remind me of that. And I was like, she just bought herself. When I tell you, I did not think you could buy yourself a crown. Like, I thought that was for little
Yeah.
girls or for actual queens. I,
Mhm.
I was like, how much was it? She was $6.99. And she literally kept that tiara with her. And it was her reminder of saying yes to herself and that she was worthy. And it was like a decision that she made. It wasn't she earned it. And it reminded me that we are all valuable. And it was like, that's what we have to do. It's not taking off the corset and being like, screw it. I don't care anymore. I don't care about this. I don't care about, I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm done. It's actually putting on the crown and saying, I am worthy. I believe in myself and I'm going to show up for myself in a different way for a different reason.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I
Yeah.
just love that like your daughter had that wherewithal at such a young age to be like, I'm deciding this now.
And then
Because
she started auditioning for things that she never would audition
oh,
for before
that's
because
amazing.
she was a singer and she ended up getting cast as Belle in Beauty and the Beast in her high school musical. And they were really well known for their musical theater. She ended up winning all sorts of awards performing on Broadway. And she is
Awesome.
now studying musical theater in college. And she's actually a professional princess as well on the side, which
That's
is so
awesome.
funny to me. But I mean, her picture was up on Times Square, like all
Wow.
because she made the decision that she was worthy. And I think that's what happens when you take off the corset, when you
Yeah.
actually start to see the cultural conditioning that has forced us to shrink.
Right.
And when you decide you're not going to shrink anymore and you're going to actually lean into the gifts and the calling and the purpose of your life, it's amazing what could happen. We never would have imagined that that would be the result.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I love that. And I want to go deeper into that because this is something I think that so many women experience is like the outside world is screaming at them to do all the things, be smaller, to look a certain way. And
Mhm.
then it's so easy to give into that and
Yep.
to feel like you have to continually adapt yourself to fit the external world. How do you make that transformation from outsourcing your power to then insourcing it?
Yeah, and I think that there's three well, there's a few things. I always joke that like the whole I'm a conspiracy theorist now, and the diet industry, the healthcare system, the weight loss industry, our pharmaceutical industry, our food industry, none of it is in our best interest. They're
Right.
not trying to help us out here. And
Mhm.
again, if we can start to see it, we start making different choices for ourselves. I say it's a whole bunch of BS. And the BS that we really need, the BS that matters is our belief systems, understanding behavioral science, and then as a nutritionist, I know the power of blood sugar. And so I love to talk about the BSs there, but the belief system, nothing's going to work. Nothing's going to work in terms of your health, making changes, any of it until you actually start to notice what you tell yourself.
Mhm.
And it's like when my daughter, again, Grace, when she turned 16, they had to buy their own car and she wanted a Subaru Crosstrek. And I said, I've never seen a Subaru Crosstrek before. And my husband was like, you've certainly seen one. I'm like, I've never seen one before. And he shows me a picture and I'm like, super cute car, never seen one before. And then what do I do when I leave the house? What do I see?
Yeah.
Literally, I see Subaru Crosstreks everywhere. I'm like, did
Mhm.
everybody start driving a Subaru Crosstrek today? That's crazy. But your brain filters what you tell it. And we all know that story, whether it's a Subaru Crosstrek or something else, we can all relate to that. And it is proof that what we tell our brain, it will focus on. And so the very first thing I talk about is A, noticing you have this corset on, and B, I live right outside of New York City where there's always signs that say, if you see something, say something. If you start to see something about how you're thinking, about what you're telling yourself, you will start to say something different to yourself. And so the first thing I say is notice how you talk to yourself. Notice what you're saying. We are sitting in an incredible number of disempowered beliefs that feel like truth. I call it truthiness because it's based on what we have been told or reinforced. I know when I actually lost all the weight that I wanted to lose by really focusing on my blood sugar and not counting calories, not dieting, none of that kind of stuff, I was like so excited because I was like, oh, I met my goal weight, of which now I vehemently despise the concept of a goal weight because I don't really have any control over that. But I was affirmed that my value isn't what I looked like because everybody was like, "Oh, you look great. Oh my gosh." Da, da, da." There were people that were mad at me because I had lost weight. And I was like, well, first of all, now I'm more obsessed. Now I'm more obsessed about all of this stuff. And I realized that like all the things I was telling myself was affirming the fact that my value is in what I look like. And so when we can start to notice the Subaru Crosstrek, notice what we're telling our brain has to filter out millions of pieces of information a day. And it will focus on what you tell it. So if you're focused on what you look like, you focus on weight loss, you focus on certain aspects of the corset, your brain is going to constantly keep reinforcing those beliefs and you are going to feel like they are more and more right. It's like our algorithm on social media. Whatever
Yeah.
you sit on, you get more of. And
Mhm.
so the very first thing that I talk about with women is to notice how you talk to yourself and start to take a swap. If somebody said to you the thing that you're saying to yourself, you would say, oh, come on, that's not true. Right? Like, I'm such a failure. I can't stick it at anything. Like, these are little internal beliefs. Like, I don't have enough time to work out. I don't have enough time to take care of myself. If you believe that, you will never find enough time and it will become true. And then this is what ends up happening because I joke that we just sort of chat GPT and Google our way through life. Like we have our head down, we're getting our to-do list done, we're not actually thinking. But I mean, I'm 51 years old. When I went to college, we didn't even have computers, really. It was like dial up, you had to go to the library, and you had to bring a yellow legal pad to the library in order to do any research on a card catalog and a microfiche machine. And so when I wrote papers, I had to dig in and it took longer and it was less efficient, but I can still remember what I wrote. And I think we need to do a little bit more of that in our own lives, spending a little bit of time going to the quote unquote library, thinking about our thinking, questioning the status quo, recognizing that our thoughts, while they feel true, may not actually be true and serving us. And it's that level of self awareness that I don't think in this day and age we are even taught how to do or that we should do. Because I can order something right now on Amazon and it will be at my house by tonight.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I think that's sort of this corset that we're living in. So I do think that we need to reject what we
Mhm.
have been just conditioned to believe, and we need to start taking some time to realign what we say we want and why we want it and go to the library. Do a little digging, a little bit more than just getting our CVS to-do list, CVS receipt to-do
Mhm.
list done. And really, what do I want? Why do I want it? And what do I really need to prioritize? And I like to think about what would my 90-year-old self tell me is the most important thing I need to be focused on? And
Right.
what would my 6-year-old self tell me? Like
Mhm.
before the corset came on. And
Right.
those two points of view, I feel like can help guide us into realigning and resetting while we take off that corset and put on the crown.
Yeah, it's such a powerful perspective. You can future cast, really ask those questions, and then your brain starts to go to work when you have better quality questions that you're asking yourself. So there's so much power
Yes.
in that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think in this world where well, I know you see it. I mean, the attention is so pulled in so many directions that that quiet time is very, very little.
Yeah.
And there's so much power in that quiet time of actually knowing yourself without the external inputs of all that.
It's totally true. And that so in the and so 20 years as a behavior specialist, 10 years as a behavior specialist coupled with a what I call an untraditional nutritionist. For 30 years I have been working and analyzing and really paying attention to behaviors. And with the thousands of women that I've worked with to really shift the way that they show up for themselves and why they show up for themselves, I am bullish on morning time. And I don't want to tell people they have to do more, but I
Mhm.
want to be smarter about how we spend our time. People will always say to me, like, I have 4 businesses in the health and wellness space. How do you have like 30 hours in a day? I'm like, I don't. I take really, truly 15 minutes in the morning, and I have a very particular protocol on how I get myself set up for the day. I'm reflecting on the day before, and I'm very intentional about what are the top three things I am going to accomplish today on top of everything else. And I'm very much a believer in 1% consistently over time adds up big. It's
Mhm.
how I've built four really successful businesses because I take things like they say, you can eat an elephant one bite at a time. If we can show up, and I know in the busyness of life, it feels really impossible, but that's where you can go to the library.
Mhm.
5 minutes in the morning, getting super intentional. There's three things that I always say we do. One, get super grounded in gratitude. And I don't just mean like, oh, I'm thankful for my kids. I'm thankful for my husband. But like one, where can you be really grateful for your body? Because again, your brain filters out what you tell it to. And while we might be frustrated with our body, we show up differently for people we like versus what we don't like, who we don't like. We got to start liking ourselves and
Right.
recognizing there's something bigger out there than just our kind of microcosmic stress. And when we can get grounded in gratitude with like maybe a devotional or something like that, it helps
Mhm.
us. It's actually a lot of science around how we can then solve problems and become more resilient when we sit in gratitude. The second thing is learning something new. Even a page of a book. It's like when old people do Sudoku or crossword
Yeah.
puzzles, but by learning something new, you're telling yourself there are new ways to think about things and you start to become a better problem solver while learning something. And number three, time blocking my day. I literally sit and I'm like, okay, when am I going to do the things that I know I have to do? And then you start to prioritize. There's just simply not enough time in the day because so many times we have this list and we don't get it done and we feel like a failure. But in
Mhm.
all reality, if we can be reasonable and realistic about how much we can actually get done and we get it done, we feel real successful. And so if I show up at this little staff meeting for myself every day, it changes the way I show up all day. And if I don't perform perfectly, which we never do, I can just reset tomorrow. And I can just reset and realign and I never get that far off where I'm like, how the heck did I get here? And that's what I mean by going to the library. It's such a simple technique that I think has gotten missed. And I don't mean you're sitting with a cup of coffee scrolling on your phone. I mean, you're taking some time to actually go to the library.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So many powerful tools, and just integrating even just one of those would make a
Yeah,
difference and a shift where you can start to
absolutely.
see something outside of your current reality. So
Yep.
it's so powerful. One trap I always wanted to kind of talk about, because I feel like this is something as you're talking, this came to me, is a lot of times we can get stuck in the trap of like, when this happens, then I'll be happy.
Yes.
And can you talk about that? Because I think this is a really big thing, especially when we see this, like these quick fixes like GLP-1 being pumped out, and people are like, okay, well, maybe if I just do that and then I get thin, then I'll be happy and then my whole life will fall into place. Can
That is
you
the
dive?
corset.
Yes.
That is literally like
Yes.
when you lose the weight, then you get
Right.
to be the woman that you said you want. What we
Right.
really want with losing weight is this peace and confidence, right? So when I say, what do you want and why do you want it? People are like, I want weight loss so I can be confident. I'm like, oh, so you really want to be confident, right? Like, let's actually dig into what we want and why we want it. And I will also argue weight loss and health are two very different things because if we go after weight loss, our brain sees the Subaru Crosstrack, weight loss,
Right.
weight loss, weight loss. We will do very unhealthy things. And when we actually can identify what is the healthiest version of me do, say, think, and believe, I will argue that GLP-1 is your effort to get to the top of the mountain with a helicopter, as opposed to recognizing that the journey to the top of that mountain comes in the hike. And I don't believe that the healthiest version of you wants to get to the top with a helicopter because you want the pride and the strength that comes with hiking. But I do have a really great story because my daughter Ellie, she was adopted, and when she was 3 years old, we were taking a family mission trip to China. We were actually living in Asia at the time, and she's Chinese, and we adopted her when she was 10 weeks old. The girl doesn't speak a lick of Chinese, right? And so she said, Mom and Dad, don't worry. When we get to China, I will speak Chinese.
Oh.
And we were like, oh, that's so cute. But we didn't tell her. We didn't want to burst her bubble. And we kind of thought she'd forget about it. She's super smart. And so as soon as we land, she goes, oh, I can't, I can't speak Chinese. And we're like, oh, I know, honey. And
Yeah.
why can't she speak Chinese? Because she never took the time to actually learn Chinese. It's
Mhm.
just not going to magically come because you landed in China. And I think that's what we think about with confidence. We think about peace and self-worth. We just think if we can get this external thing, if I can land in China, if I can lose weight, suddenly all that stuff is going to happen. No, it comes from the work and the time you put into loving yourself and figuring out who you are, what you want, and why you want it. It doesn't come from a number on a scale. There are plenty of larger women that exude confidence and plenty of smaller women that don't have any confidence at all. So clearly it's not in the size, but we have been culturally conditioned that that corset has convinced us that that is true. But just like we knew Ellie was never going to be able to speak Chinese by landing in China, whenever I hear a woman say that, I have that same like motherly instinct to be like, oh, honey, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I just think again, nobody talks about that. Like nobody, it's weight loss is the thing that everybody has just, I think, globally agreed is the goal. And I'm like, it's not really what it is. A truly healthy person shows up for themselves in a different way than someone who is constantly trying to lose weight. The average woman that I work with is 55 years old and she has been dieting, trying to lose weight for 30 years.
Mhm.
It's not working. We need
Right.
to take a different approach.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think some women almost have to go through that to find that out for themselves of like, oh yeah, it doesn't work. And unfortunately, you can't always listen to like the people that know and been through it. And that's really unfortunate that so
I
many
know.
women
But this is
waste so much
why
energy.
this is why you and I exist. This is why
Yes.
we do what we do. This is why I wrote my book. This is why I'm so passionate about women seeing it. If you don't see the corset, you just
Right.
think it's fact. It's what is supposed to happen. Like the sky is blue, I'm supposed to lose weight. The sky is blue, I'm supposed to shrink to be more. The sky is blue, I cannot have value unless I earn it. Like
Right.
all of these pieces just become part of reality and truth, but it isn't true. And I think this is why I mean, I'm all about being disruptive and starting to disrupt the status quo. But if we can't change what we don't see. So it's the first part has to be about seeing it.
Absolutely. And it's that power of awareness. Once
Yeah.
you do see it, I mean, there are so many things I feel like I've seen in the past few years, and I'm like, holy, how did I believe that for 30 plus years? And now I'm
I
like, wait,
trust
what?
me.
And it's like your whole paradigm shifts because you're like, geez, like you
Oh my
see like how
gosh.
much energy and time and effort and money you've wasted on trying to achieve something that was never going to happen the way that you thought it was going to. So
Yep.
it is so powerful when you do see things for truth rather than all the mixed
It,
intentions that are behind
yeah.
some of these things.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is true. And like when we really think about what we want out of life, one of our mindset coaches actually just blew my brain out of the water about 9 years ago when she's like, are we doing it out of ego or are we doing it out of heart? Do we want what we want because of our own ego, because of our desire to have people say something about us or think something a certain way about us or believe something which we don't control? Or
Right.
do we want to do it because it's really coming from our heart, who we are, and how we want to leave this world? And you know, I won't get into all of this, but like Oprah breaks my heart in so many ways because I think about this woman who in the 80s I used to look at and I'm like, wow, because at that time you did not ever have a plus size woman of color who had that much power and influence and that much of a strong like skill set and just in the world, right? And her whole thing was about weight loss. She has been wearing this corset. She's in her 70s now, talking about GLP-1s. And I'm like, you are going to be known as a woman who is always looking to lose weight, as opposed to a woman who had the potential to be just such a role model for all of us. And now I'm like, no, we can't. And I don't want it breaks my heart because that corset she has not seen with all of her money and all of her influence and all of her resources. It's almost like nobody's told her she's wearing this corset and it's time to take it
Yeah.
off.
Right. Yeah. And that's like it's fascinating. You're so right with all the resources and she's so worldly bent in so many ways, but like to still pursue the same thing and not have this unconditional self-acceptance is really it's
Right.
fascinating,
And
what's
it's not
going on
like I'm
behind
sitting
that.
in, I don't really agree with the whole body positivity movement in
Yeah.
the way that it has been marketed, where it's like, eat all the ding dongs, eat
Right.
whatever you want. Because I think we should love our body and treat our body. I say food serves our body and food serves our soul, and we need both.
Mhm.
Right. And so I think we need to I just think if we could actually define what is the healthiest version of you do, say, think, and believe, and start living like that, it's amazing how well that works
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
becomes a part of identity.
Right. Absolutely. And then you move in the direction of what you identify of who you are, which is where your
Exactly.
true power is.
Yeah, it's like I don't smoke. It's not even a
Mhm.
question. I just don't
Yeah.
smoke. And it's not like I'm trying not to smoke. That's a different identity. Somebody that's
Mhm.
trying not to smoke versus somebody that doesn't smoke. And I
Right.
think this woman that's trying to lose weight or trying to be something, it becomes a part of this like constant identity. You'll never ever get there because you're not identifying as the person who is there. If you want to truly be the healthiest version of yourself, you got to start being that person now. You will continue to evolve and up level, but you got to show up now as her for the right reasons because you love yourself too much. I just think we're all here for a purpose, one uniquely curated just for us. And in order to live that purpose for as long as possible and impact as many people as possible, we have to be the healthiest version of ourselves. And I think we've just been chasing something, this elusive reward that comes with a number on a scale or a certain position in a job. In all reality, it's just not true.
Yeah. How much do you think the role of being disconnected from your feelings plays into that?
It's like, well, let's do it this way.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're completely disconnected from our feelings or
Mhm.
if, because of how we have identified and because of our patterns, we react a certain way based on an emotion. Like we operate in fear so often. So we feel afraid, we feel scared, angry, whatever it is, and we have just reacted,
Mhm.
right? So we yell at our kids, we binge eat the cake because it's basically responding to this emotion that that literally controls our thoughts.
Mhm.
And so I talk about, okay, we can feel a certain way, but we need to identify what it is, where it's coming from, and then decide, are we going to let our thoughts just automatically go with our feelings? Like, I don't feel like working out today. Oh, I'm so busy. I just don't feel like it. And then we think that that justifies certain decision making. And I think we have to be, this is me as my behavior specialist. I don't know if it's we're disconnected from our feelings, but we just respond based on feelings subconsciously because we never go to the library because
Yeah.
we don't take the time to actually look. And I think we're actually way too connected to our feelings.
Mhm.
And our feelings are fickle. And if this is why we're never consistent with anything, because it's like, I don't feel like working out one day. I feel like we get a burst of motivation. I'm going to meal prep. I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to get organized. And then we stop doing it because we don't feel like it anymore. And I think we got to stop riding the wave of feelings, recognize them, and then get in control of our thoughts. Because we can control that. We might not be able to control our feelings, but we can control our thoughts, but
Right.
not if we're so subconscious, like unconsciously reacting.
Mhm.
We need to learn how to respond.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then that vision of not knowing yourself enough to know what you actually truly desire without the blurred lines of what everything you ex is expected of
Right.
you can really make
Right.
this distorted when you're
Right.
living that.
That's why that blueprint of the healthiest version of you really matters because when you come
Right.
home on a Monday night, let's say like it's Monday night, you're super stressed, the kids have to eat again, and there's chocolate cake on the counter, you're
Mhm.
going to go for that chocolate cake. Why? Because you've done it before under stress. And in that moment, right after you have that cake, your nervous system relaxes a little bit and you're like, now, long term, that is not good. And then there's all sorts of guilt
Right.
that happens afterwards. But we have played that loop so many times that our brain automatically goes to that. And we have to circumvent that loop. And that loop can be circumvented by getting curious with ourselves, not just reacting, like I said, to those feelings, but having a staff meeting with ourselves every morning,
Mhm.
getting curious about no guilt, just data. Why did I respond that way? What was the thing that happened to me just before? I don't even think about it and I'm just eating the cake. That's
Mhm.
because of the loops that we have played in our head over and over again. And then we believe, oh, I have no willpower. Oh, I have no discipline. That becomes our identity. And this loop will never end. I don't care if you have the perfect diet or meal plan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's such a vicious loop when you keep on going into that and then don't have anything to interrupt that pattern and maybe can't even see it from a different perspective
Yeah.
because you're so engrossed into that.
It's exactly the corset. You're literally wearing the corset.
Yeah.
And instead, you haven't even thought about the fact that you can buy a crown on Amazon for
Right.
6.99.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One thing
Yep.
I would love to go into because this is something that I think once you start to have some awareness of how things work, it can be really challenging is the food industry in
Mhm.
where we see so many things just being put into our foods. Like I have two
Mhm.
kids, I'm always looking at the labels, what's
Mhm.
in, I have an app and literally I'll go through the grocery store and I'm like, well, I can't buy 99%
I
of the
know.
stuff because of what's in it.
Yeah.
Can we talk about like the impacts of that, these additives and all this stuff that's causing inflammation in our system? We think it's fat, and then now we double down on the exercise, which causes more inflammation, how that can be a very vicious cycle for many women too.
I always say like social media is awful. I like to say that, but it's also really good because
Yeah.
it's brought to light what's really going on. None of us knew the
Right.
truth. And then it's like when you start to see it more, you're like, I can't unsee this. Right. So there are times where like I rarely go to the grocery store anymore. I get super frustrated that like the natural section is this tiny little part of it. And but I'm also not growing my own food. And so over the past 10 years, I think this has become more and more prevalent. And I've continued to up level my own health. And so I have now decided to do what I like to call the no brainer swaps as much as I can. And I have prioritized this piece of our family, always trying to up level. But like, for example, I don't buy any of my meat anymore at any grocery store. I don't buy it at Costco at all. I go to like a online bit company that does all grass-fed beef, and I get on a subscription and I have that delivered to me. I do the same with fish. I have a local farmer that does chicken. So all of my proteins I feel really good about, right? And it's like to me, we have, especially women who work, right? We have all these systems at work, like SOPs, standard operating procedures. And the reason we have standard operating procedures is because regardless of how you feel,
Mhm.
you still got to show up. And when you have these processes, your emotions get taken out of it. So I don't think we do enough of these standard operating procedures at home. And really, like, what are the systems that we have set up? Because if we have to constantly be thinking about this and getting frustrated with it, then it's always going to feel hard and impossible. So I just set up these systems. I have three different delivery services that send my protein to me. And to be very honest with you, I actually do not spend any more money. I'm getting really good food and I eat it. Because how many
Mhm.
times do you grocery shop and then you end up ordering out and all of that? So,
Right.
like, we have these systems in place now. So, we got a big freezer and we get delivered our stuff. Then I do use Costco I use Instacart. I'm much more in control. And I have my local grocery store and my Costco. I have organic food that I like the organic, if they don't have organic strawberries, I'll buy something else organic. And I'm really careful with all of that, ordering the same things pretty much all the time, as well as like my local grocery store. And I have these systems set up and we kind of operate a little bit on autopilot. I do have a whole vault of really great recipes that I love to choose from, but they have a lot of this, like, I just, I don't think we need 100 boxes of mac and cheese in our pantry. We just don't. I think a lot of us could live on the amount of processed food that we have just sitting in our kitchen because it's so cheap, but we're not even eating it and it's not helping us. So I just think we have to just think a little differently instead of looking at it as a problem. It's like, oh, how can I set up systems and just continuously like get delivered to me the stuff that has to get delivered? And I get it. That's more money. Like I'm disgusted about egg cost, but getting a Costco or a BJ's or a Sam's Club kind of a membership, it mitigates the cost, but also I have the same budget that I had before. I'm just really thoughtful about what I'm eating. We don't waste food.
Mhm.
And again, morning time is a really great place where on Sundays, my morning time is simply looking at what we're going to do for dinners every night. Like
Mhm.
I replace all the stuff I normally do on morning time with a different strategy in Sunday mornings.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that helps at all, but like I do think that there's there's this and until it gets a lot better, we
Mhm.
are looking at what we're looking at, and there are ways to do the best that we can. And I
Mhm.
think no matter what, as long as we're cooking more, it's good, as well as the fact that like we could do puzzle pieces. Like we can do proteins and fats and carbohydrates, and it doesn't have to be an elaborate meal. Like
Mhm.
my kids will grab turkey, almond, and apple, and that's it. Like that's literally it, but it's like a nourishing meal. It can be that simple. We have protein bars and protein shakes and, work to get the ones with the best ingredients, but it really can be simple. You just got to like be willing to have that solution.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing what your system is because I think this is like hearing this, it just gives, it can plant that seed of like, oh, it doesn't have to be difficult. Like I
Yeah.
can, this feels like a manageable thing versus if you feel like you have to overhaul your entire shopping list and food, it can feel very overwhelming. So if you can
Hmm.
see where you can make those little
Yeah.
changes and modifications, then you can start to integrate that into your daily routine much easier.
Well, yeah, and another thing about our brain is that it doesn't want to do anything different. Our
Right.
brain wants its job is to keep us safe. It doesn't know that you're on any sort of a health journey or any sort of an up-leveling journey. It just wants to keep you safe. And if you present things that are unfamiliar to your brain is going to start to, in its subconscious, tell you that those things don't need to happen. So, like if you start to join a gym or you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and that goes against everything you've done for years and years, you're gonna be like, oh, the gym's expensive. You know what? I'm not gonna go. Or I could just work out at home, or I'll work out later. And you start to subconsciously question the choices that you make. So if you can start to implement very, very small shifts, you almost trick your brain into like, we've always done this. Oh, this is what we do. This is who we are. If we try to do too much at once, because we're motivated. Motivation's not a strategy. But if we try to do too much at once and think it's going to sustain, it won't because our brain sees it as different. Different is unsafe to our brain, and our brain will literally put the brakes on it.
Mhm. Right. Absolutely. And then to go into that a little bit more, because what if you live in a household where you are systematic, you're ready to make those changes, you feel like you've
Mhm.
done the inner work, and maybe you have a spouse or someone in your household who is completely not doing that or isn't going along with that or agreeable with that.
Yep.
How do you navigate those dynamics where you are elevating your self-worth, but maybe there are other people that are maybe pulling that down a little bit?
So this is where I think we continue to wear the corset. I hear
Mhm.
this from women all the time. Actually, just last night I was hearing from a woman who said my husband will never let me, and then whatever it was.
Mm.
And I'm like, listen, I am not a marriage counselor. I'm not going to be this marriage
Right.
counselor. And when we have, again, this belief, this truthiness, this like, my husband doesn't support me kind of a thing,
Mhm.
we don't often take the opportunity to communicate and advocate for ourselves what we want, why we want it, and what we need them to do. Most of our spouses, like I always joke, I'm like to my husband, you don't work for me. Why? Stop acting like you work for me. But they kind of do. And so, like, if you can give them the direction of where it needs to be. Now, if you're just gonna throw on a whole bunch of chicken and kale on their plate, they're like, I don't want to do this. This isn't for me. And then we kind of interpret it like they're not supporting us. And again, I can't go over every type of situation,
Right.
but I do believe that communication and relationship is everything. And if you know who you are, you advocate for that. And I know that we have the capability of doing this because let's just say the same scenario was happening with our kid. Our husband, our spouse did not support something that we knew our child needed. We will fight for that all day long. We don't fight for it for ourselves. And so
Right.
that's the first thing. I don't assume that our spouses just don't support us. I don't believe that we have actually taken the corset off, put on our crown, and actually really, truly, authentically, and lovingly shared. This is what I am doing, why I'm doing it, and this is how you can support me. I believe that they want to be supportive. And
Mhm.
if not, then you need to take it to another level. You need to start figuring some things out because there's a problem within that relationship. But I don't know that we've actually taken the step to do that first part first. We've just made assumptions and we
Mhm.
need to get on the same page. And I've been
Yeah.
married 26 years. It's not like I'm unfamiliar to that fear or that belief, but I also know that a lot of it's sitting in me and my own assumptions about how that other person is interpreting.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really helpful. Just to again, that communication is so key in that. And if you
Mhm.
haven't had that, then that gives you another avenue to pursue to make sure that this is something that you can move forward together with.
Yep,
So,
exactly. But it can't be the excuse as to why you don't.
right.
It just
Hmm.
can't be because
Right.
there is nothing to me that is a bigger priority than me putting my own oxygen mask on, figuring out who I am so I can truly show up for the people in my life as authentically as possible. Because there are way too many women, and now I'm of the age where most of our kids are going, to college and things like that, and I can see it. So for your audience, if you still have little kids, if we don't actually really truly show up for ourselves now, in
Yeah.
some way, it's going to look different today with little kids than it does for me when my kids are gone. And that's okay. There's different seasons of our lives. You're not going to be able to do red light and cold plunge and sauna and all the things. But you do have to authentically and intentionally show up for yourself because you will not be able to be there for everyone if you have a breakdown or you're sick. 93% of people are metabolically unhealthy. And I
Mhm.
refuse, A, to make my kids have to take care of me when I'm older, but B, I am committed to changing my family tree. And
Mhm.
that means if I don't show up for myself and model that for my kids, they're never going to do it either.
Mhm. Yeah, I love it. There's so much power in it too. It's taking back your power, taking back your voice, taking back everything that maybe you've outsourced to so many
Yes.
things, and you get to be a different version of yourself from this step forward. So it's really a powerful exploration of yourself in this. And one
It
thing is
is.
if someone's listening and maybe they have no idea they have a corset on, what
Yeah.
would be some of those subtle signs they could start to recognize in themselves of like, oh, this is something that I'm being challenged with right now?
Yeah. And I think this is where it's like, notice what you're saying to yourself. And
Mhm.
these little tiny justified excuses of why we can't do something. The minute we're like, I can't,
Mhm.
like I've heard this so many times, like shift it to I won't. But I actually, I take it kind of another level, getting curious with myself. Literally, like, and you're never going to do this if you don't spend a little bit of time with yourself because you will run through life with your head down and your CVS receipt of a to-do list and never actually look up. And so if you're not actually looking up, you're not going to notice this. That's why I think the staff meeting with yourself every morning is so important. But you will start to see just literally knowing about this corset is going to start to kind of stir in some of these things. And I'm not a big journaler, but I do believe that if we can take a little bit of time to actually note different things that people said to us during the day that made us feel like we were not quite enough. There's often a feeling in my stomach when I feel less than. There's actually a physical reaction that many of us have. It could be our ears get hot, we could get a runny nose, we could actually feel a little bit of a burning in our stomach, we could have a twitch in our eye. Like it is incredible how our body physically will respond, but I don't think most of us even know it. So it's just being super aware and getting curious first. And then you'll start to be able to, it will like literally be like almost a blowhorn yelling at you.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's really helpful because again, if we don't see these patterns, then we don't know what needs to change or how we can help ourselves. So I really appreciate you sharing that for anyone who's listening and doesn't necessarily know they have these patterns, but now they have some tools that they can take forward and start to recognize that in them and not recognize that in themselves.
Yeah.
And
And I also think that if you have young kids,
yeah,
like you got to start to notice some of the things that they say little by little by little because it's a mirror.
it
They're a
is.
mirror. And it is a really interesting way. I'd also say like you are like who you surround yourself around. And it's funny because I will have people in my life that were like, "Did you hear what you just said?"
Mhm.
And I was like, I remember I was gardening and I was like, I am so bad at gardening. Like, I literally am so bad at it. And they were like, "Did you hear what you just said?" And it was just such a silly little flippant thing. But
Yeah.
we do that and say those kind of things. It's like, honestly, the reason I'm bad at gardening is because I don't like it. I want to like it. I want to have a garden, but I don't actually want to do the work it takes to have the garden. And that's a different statement than I'm really bad at something.
Yeah.
And these are the little things that when we start to, if we can have people around us that actually help us to notice it, it helps too.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And it is that the relationships become that biggest mirror. And I can totally testify with kids because I see so many things in my kids. I'm like, okay, noted, like you can definitely see what's coming out that you don't see in yourself. And yeah, I love that when you have people around you that will truthfully mirror back to you what you're experiencing. That's such a gift so that you can see it in yourself.
Yeah. And then to me, it is about acknowledging. I remember when we went to parenting classes, because I really wanted to be a good parent.
Mhm.
And it was like, if you yell at your kids or you and your husband get into a fight, apologizing in front of them matters. And I always took that to heart when I was going through my own journey, this 10 years between my daughter being 6 and 16, when I realized she had the corset and I realized that she had the crown. I narrated what was going on in my brain. You know what? I'm thinking about what mommy just said, and I feel like I need to say it differently. And that
Mhm.
is what I would do. So I divorced myself from having to be perfect because I didn't know what I was
Yeah,
doing. But
right.
I knew I was on a journey. I know where I wanted to be. And so I just like out loud processed with them. And
Yeah.
that was like really a very cool thing to do. And it was funny because my youngest just read my book finally. And she was like, oh my gosh, it was like everything that I realized you were saying to us all of our lives. Like I get it now. It was really funny.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
such a gift to them to see that internal processing shared with them too, because now they are going to have tools to be able to do their own processing and
Oh, and
repair
they
things
do.
and go back to things and correct them and realize they don't have to show up perfectly every day. And that's such a
Yep.
gift.
Yeah, and I just think again, we think we want to give our kids more than we had, and we always put finances. But I think
Right.
we can't teach what we don't know. So you
Mhm.
can't expect your kids are going to be able to do these things if you're not doing the internal work to think about it. But I also know we can't add one more thing to our list. So that's why I'm saying this even start off with a 5 minute morning meeting with yourself. It will change the trajectory of your life and your kids' lives. It sounds so simple, but it can be powerful. Just don't be scrolling on the phone during it.
Right,
Just get
exactly.
yourself in the library.
Yes, you get to put the energy into yourself rather than somebody else and
Yeah.
really show up with what feels right for you versus what someone expects of you. So there's so much
Yeah.
power to that. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for everything you shared today. And for someone who's listening, where can they find your book? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, so my book is From Corset to Crown. If you go to my website, carrielupoli.com, we give a lot of little extra bonuses. If you like, there's a link to get the book in there, and then you can get a whole bunch of extra bonuses and all sorts of great stuff there. Carrie_Lupoli on Instagram. I actually go live every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, to do morning time because it's so important. And I teach a 1% empowered mindset each day. And then I will say that we have an amazing event in Nashville in October. They can see on my website because we really want to get women in the room taking off the corset because I think there's so much value to the virtual, but there's nothing like being in person. So it's our very first in-person event, and I'm super excited about that. So Nashville is sort of in the center of the country. I feel like
Mhm.
people can get there. It'd be great. 3 days of really like learning and going to the library.
That's amazing. I'll put everything in the show notes. So definitely
Awesome.
connect with Carrie, go to the event, go get her book, and definitely, again, thank you for everything you shared. I know there's gonna be so many golden nuggets people are gonna take in this, and the seeds will start to be planted to change and transform from the inside out.
Well, I would love to hear. So if anybody gets a golden nugget, shoot me a message. I always respond because it means a lot to me that what I'm saying resonates. And if it doesn't, that matters too.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much. And again, for anyone listening, if something resonated with you, share this episode because we know that there's so many people that need to hear this message. So